Hi Sam, good morning. Thank you so much for agreeing to come and share with us this morning on brain health. Now, you're a medical doctor with a special interest in brain health. Is there anything that we should know about happiness and our brains?
Good morning, Geraldene. Absolutely. The short version of my answer is you are your brain and your brain is you.
Please explain. I'm sure I'm not the only one who would like to know more.
Basically, if I put it like this, if you lost all four of your limbs, plus the use of your eyes and your ears and your voice, remember Helen Keller,
Mm-hmm.
you would not cease to be you. You would still be you, but if you lost your brain, you would cease to be. You cannot be you without your brain, you know.
Yes, but what does this have to do with being happy?
Well, a healthy brain equals a happy brain equals a happy you.
Okay, so I need to have a healthy brain to be happy?
Most definitely.
So, how do I get a healthy brain? Let's go back one step. What is a happy brain?
Like I said, a happy brain is a healthy brain. A healthy brain is one where all its parts are in good shape. It's useful to think of our brain in four areas. So I would say a healthy brain has a physical aspect, it has a mental aspect, a social aspect, as well as a spiritual aspect.
So, how do I know if any of these parts need fixing?
That's a good question. I would say there are two ways of finding out. One is quite simple. You can do a quick self-assessment where you score yourself into for each of these four areas out of 10, which is kind of a quick and dirty way of doing it. So the scale was 0 means you're basically dead, and 10 means you have an excellent score in that area. So you'll have a score out of 10 for each of the physical, mental, social, and spiritual areas. And then just to make it a bit more interesting, you could ask somebody who knows you very well to also score your brain health in those four areas out of 10. And then you can compare and you can discuss the results and any insights that gives you. So the other one is a bit more detailed. Dr. Daniel Amen, he's an American psychiatrist. He has developed an online assessment, which he calls the Web Neuro Test. And you can find that at www.mybrainfitlife.com. This is a test which takes approximately 35 minutes, but it's quite comprehensive, and they email you the results quite quickly. And he includes some recommendations there for how you can improve your brain health as well. So that's quite a useful tool as well.
That sounds marvelous. So, how much does this cost?
Well, believe it or not, it's actually free.
Oh, wow. Do you want to just repeat that address?
So it's the Web Neuro Test. It's at www.mybrainfitlife.com.
Thank you. I don't know about the listeners, but I can't wait to complete my online test. But in the meantime, and for the purpose of our time together, what can you teach us about cheering up our brains? What do we have to do to have healthier brains?
Well, firstly, we can look at the anatomy of the brain. The brain being quite a complex organ, as you know. So happiness does not reside in any one particular location within the brain. It is sort of shared across the brain, which is actually quite good. So we don't rely on just one part of our brain to be happy. As we generally very complex beings, and as mentioned before, there are multiple facets of our existence that contribute to our overall experience of happiness. So to help you understand, let's look at the anatomy of the human brain firstly. So the brain consists of several parts. When we view the brain externally, we can see the cerebrum and the brainstem, as we can see in our diagram there. The cerebrum consists of the frontal lobe, which is in front, the parietal lobe on top, the occipital lobe at the back, and the temporal lobe on the side. Inside the brain, we find other structures which have very important functions. And one of those, when it comes to happiness, is the limbic system, which together with the frontal lobe sets the emotional tone of one's mind amongst numerous other functions.
When you say happiness, could we also call it well-being?
Yes, because happiness and well-being go hand in hand, really.
Okay.
I don't think one can be fully well if you're not happy.
Okay.
So the limbic system then consists of the thalamus, the cingulate cortex, the hippocampus, and the hypothalamus. So now we've just taken a brief look at what our physical brain comprises of, the anatomy of the brain as we call it. In addition, your brain needs optimum levels of various hormones, and there are some of certain hormones which enable us to be happy, and some people call them the happy hormones. So for our brain to function optimally, we need these hormones to be there in good supply. And the one is dopamine, the second one is serotonin, the third one is oxytocin, and then there's a group of happy hormones which they call the endorphins.
Now, I've heard some of these names before, but what in particular do these hormones do?
So here's what these hormones are responsible for in our bodies. So just a brief overview, really. So dopamine, that's the hormone that gives us feelings of pleasure, and it also increases our levels of motivation. Whereas serotonin, it helps to regulate our mood, it helps to improve our sleep cycle, and it aids our appetite and digestion. Oxytocin has also been called the love hormone, and it actually is found not just in females, but in males as well. And this is the hormone that increases social bonding, sexual pleasure. It imparts the feeling of calm, and it enhances the ability to deal with stress. Oxytocin also plays a role in labor and in breastfeeding and in child rearing. Now the endorphins, they inhibit the communication of pain signals, and they also bring about feelings of euphoria.
So now we have a basic understanding of what our brains consist of and the hormones our brains need for optimum functioning. What do we have to do to achieve optimum levels of these hormones? But first, how is it that these hormones become depleted in the first place?
Well, Geraldene, you've asked two questions really. So I'll answer the second one first. So you asked, how do these hormones get depleted in the first place? So I'll give a general answer rather than sort of deal with each individual hormone because of time constraints. Basically, low levels of these hormones can arise in three ways. The one is insufficient production. Second way is excessive utilization of the hormones. And the third one is hormones can be, their function can be blocked by other substances. And in general, causes can include genetic factors, it can include stress, very common, obesity, more and more is being recognized as being responsible for many health issues, aging, poor sleep habits, consumption of alcohol and caffeine, and smoking. Interestingly, Dr. Neil Nedley, he has developed the 10 heat model for causes of depression. And we know that depression and anxiety often go together. So when we think of these causes, we we think depression, but we can bear in mind that it also is linked to anxiety. And just briefly, each of these 10 which he called hits, a hit being spelled H-I-T, a hit being a category of causes, if you like. So the first category is the genetic causes, so what we inherited. Second one is developmental. The third group of causes, nutritional factors. Number 4, social causes. Number 5, toxic factors. Number 6, circadian rhythm effects. Number 7, addiction. Number 8, lifestyle. Number 9, medical conditions. And number 10, frontal lobe. So just to go back a little bit, the circadian rhythms, they factors which affect the body clock, if you like, so those are those factors. Now you asked, I said I'll answer your first question secondly. So you asked, what do we have to do to achieve optimum levels of these essential hormones? Now, there isn't just one action that one can take. As you can imagine, we said the brain is a very complex structures organ, so you can expect that you can't just do one thing to make your brain as healthy as it can be. So I will suggest 10 healthy brain habits which we can all benefit from, and I'll go through those with you. So the first healthy brain habit is related to exercise, and research has shown that we all need a minimum of 30 minutes exercise 3 times a week. And the important point of that is that we need to exercise to the point that we sweat, and we need to be a little bit breathless while doing it to get the scientific benefit from it. So good examples of useful exercise include walking, jogging, swimming, and cycling. The second healthy brain habits that's related to nutritional factors. So Dr. Nedley describes various examples in his book, which is called Depression: The Way Out, and he describes one example of an ICU nurse that he was involved in her treatment, and she was a very good nurse. She was very well liked by the physicians and their colleagues and patients alike. But then tragedy struck their family. Her husband was suddenly killed in a car accident. And then in the aftermath, she unfortunately hooked up, as they say, with a boyfriend who dumped her within a few weeks. And from there, she just went down into the dumps, and she stopped eating. She became very depressed. She kept saying that she was too fat, although everybody could see that she was as thin as a rake. And eventually, she ended up in the hospital being looked after by a psychiatrist. And then treatment failed, and they consulted Dr. Nedley to see if he's able to help, and he got involved, and he basically supported her with nutrition and lifestyle measures like these ones that we're just discussing. And within a few days she became to improve, initially slowly, but then more dramatically, and she felt happy. Within a month she was feeling better, and she was on her way again. But then Misty decided to to stop the program, and within a short time her symptoms started coming back again, and so she decided to go back on the lifestyle and nutritional program, and soon she was feeling well again. She was able to successfully return to work, and she has remained well since then. So this is just a brief story, really, just showing how implementing these healthy brain habits can actually be very helpful to us. So we're talking about nutritional factors, and 4 of the important nutrients that we need for a healthy and a happy brain are tryptophan, which is one of the amino acids, omega-3 fatty acids, folate, and vitamin B12. So tryptophan, you might want to know, what kind of foods can I eat? So tryptophan you find in tofu, ground flax seeds, almonds, black-eyed peas, and walnuts. Omega-3 fatty acids we find in flaxseed, linseed, English or black walnuts, spinach, sesame seeds, and avocado, and berries like strawberries and blueberries. Now, folate we find in chickpeas, lentils, red kidney beans, and spinach. B12 is more challenging. We can find that in fortified soy milk, in skim milk, or you can use vitamin B12 supplements. The important thing there is to make sure that you actually chew the vitamin B12 tablet very, very well, because that aids in its absorption. So we looked at 2 healthy brain habits, exercise and nutrition. So the third one is deep breathing, and the idea is to breathe deeply from your diaphragm at a rate of 6 breaths per minute for about 30 minutes per week. And if you think about it, a good way of doing it is to take a deep breath, counting 4 seconds as you breathe in, then you hold your breath for 2 seconds, and then breathe out over 4 seconds. So that's 10 seconds, and you do that obviously another 6 times in that minute. Now this you can actually combine with a 4th healthy brain habit, which is listening to classical music. And the aim is to listen to classical music for half an hour every week. And the idea with that as well is, while you're listening to the classical music, is to think about what is bothering you in your life. So you're not just lying there, just not thinking about anything. You know, it's a way of helping you process what is going on in your life, and to actually use your imagination while you're doing that. So you can be thinking of a scene in nature or something like that. Interestingly, in the Bible, there is actually a story of how music was used as a therapy, because King Saul, he was not well from a mental point of view, and his advisors suggested that he get somebody to play a musical instrument, and they chose David. And we know that story about how whenever David played, King Saul's soul was soothed and he was better. And that's actually an example of the benefits of musical therapy from the Bible, interestingly. Now, the 5th healthy brain habit is to make sure you have regular restful sleep. And the key here is early to bed, early to rise. So ideally to be in bed by 9 p.m. And also a good sleep can be promoted by some outdoor exercise in the afternoon or in the early evening. So the 6th healthy brain habit is getting rid of ants. So ants is actually an abbreviation, ANT, which stands for automatic negative thoughts. And I learned the term ants from Dr. Amen's work. He's the American psychiatrist I mentioned earlier. And interestingly, research has found that positive thoughts, being optimistic in itself, doesn't actually necessarily improve your brain health, but the negative thoughts are the ones who actually lead to low mood and anxiety and all that. So the idea is to become aware of our automatic negative thoughts, identify them early, and then replace them straight away with a positive thought. And a useful way of doing that is to have Bible verses handy, either in written form or those that we've memorized. And so as soon as you identify an automatic negative thought, like I'm not good enough, or I'm so stupid, or whatever, critical sort of thoughts about others, to immediately, or even yourself, critical thoughts about yourself, then to replace that straight away with a positive thought. So number 7, of healthy brain habits that I would recommend is to have daily spiritual activity. And that includes to have purposeful Bible study as opposed to just casual reading of the Bible, and also prayer. Then the 8th healthy brain habit is to make sure you have good social support, which includes intentional interactions with family and friends, and community activities or church activities are included in those. So the 9th healthy brain habit then is hydrotherapy, and there are different ways that one could, different hydrotherapy methods one could apply. The one I would recommend is to have a 30-minute warm bath just before going to bed, because that also promotes a good night's sleep. And obviously, one doesn't have to have a bath every night. And then the last healthy brain habit is to own a pet, which some of you may be amused by, because some of you may not have pets. Some people don't like pets for various reasons. But actually research has shown that owning a pet has various benefits. I know for myself, we have Thomas, our dog, and often I don't feel like going for a walk necessarily, but then I feel I can't not take him for his walk. So I get the benefit of the exercise as well. So the bottom line then, there is no such thing as a happy pill to make our brain happy, even though many people have tried various different tablets, and they just don't work, or they have side effects that are not so pleasant. But there are indeed happy brain habits, like the ones, these 10 that I've recommended here. And believe it or not, all of these are supported by solid research that has shown that following these healthy brain habits, especially on a regular and on a consistent basis, does promote the production of the happy hormones we spoke about, and it helps our brain to function at its best. In other words, to be a happy brain. Now, it's obviously difficult for anybody to straight away implement 10 things, and we know that depression often is associated with a high degree of inertia, where the person feels like they know what they should do, but they just can't get themselves to do it. So for that, I would recommend 2 things. The one is to get for yourself a happy head buddy. So somebody that will introduce these healthy brain habits with you, So preferably somebody who would actually do it with you. So if you, for example, working on the exercise, that they actually go out and exercise with you. Or if that's not possible, at least they can be your accountability partner, and they can encourage you, for example, through daily telephone calls or daily text messages. So a health or a healthy or a happy head buddy is a very useful way of helping to start off on this new program. Then the other tip I would give is to only choose one, maybe two of these healthy brain habits to work on, to improve. To work on that for 2 weeks and then choose another one and then improve that for 2 weeks and so on. So in conclusion then, happiness is all about good choices and good habits really. Good habits and healthy brains make for a happy head. So stay happy.
Thank you very much, Sam.
You're welcome, Geraldene.